Yeah, chat. I saw this earlier this morning, early at noon, and I was like, I said to myself, I need to react to this because Ardetha made a video describing or talking about how the Wraith got buffed 20 plus times. And coming from a Wraith main, I watched like the first 20 seconds, and I was like, I have to react to this. I have to, because I'm a Wraith main. I've been a Wraith main myself, so I was like, I have to watch this myself. It just has to be done. So that's what I'm going to do right now. We will watch the. Oh, thing's really big. Shoot. We're going to watch Mr. Ardetha's video. I'm just gonna make it small, so it's not like crazy big. It's really big. 20. There we go. And this needs to be 1. 40. Oh wait. Oh no. I put that wrong. Oops. There we go. Alright. So we're gonna watch Mr. Ardetha's video. Because I'm curious what he has to say about the Wraith. Because he's made a couple of these videos as well recently. Like he's done it for Ruin, Decisive, Amanda, the Hackers, and now he's done it with Wraith. So yeah, we're gonna watch this. Go show Mr. Ardetha some love. We'll put his link in chat after this. I'll put it in the description as well when the time comes anyway. So yeah.
When you think of
Yeah, we'll give this a watch, chat. See if I think we'll put it like right here. Okay, Wraith. Let's see what he says about Wraith. 20 plus times Wraith has been buffed. Let's go to watch.
When you think of the Wraith in Dead by Daylight's current form, chances are you don't have any strong opinions on him. Sure, maybe he's better than Myers, Legion, etc., but he's nothing crazy. His increased map pressure when invisible is far from useless, and his post-uncloak boost can, on occasion, serve as a makeshift mind game or anti-loop tool. But if you're playing against him, you're probably not going to finish the game frustrated or tilted. What if I told you that this wasn't always the case?
Debatable. I just realized this thing's a little bit smaller than usual. That's debatable. Not always. You definitely won't always feel tilted, but you definitely can feel. Why did it do this? What the heck? It went. Okay. Hold on. I gotta fix it. I don't know why I did that. Okay. That is debatable to a sense. You sometimes can feel tilted. I guess depending on the match, if they got a bunch of flashlights and flashbangs, you might not have a good time as Wraith. So that's probably the only time you get really tilted. But I guess for the majority of the part, you're kind of correct on that. I can kind of agree with that. Yeah. Also for the fact I love that it includes Rayman 3 music in this game or in these videos. I love Rayman, so I love the music from Rayman 3. And he's got the Kanaran theme playing. Give me Reflux and DVD, please. I want him. Anyways, continue. Oop. If I can. Why is it not working? There we go.
Back in my day, the Wraith wasn't just decent. He was absolutely terrible. And there were even people debating if he was the worst killer in the game back then.
Yep.
In some ways, Wraith is the yin to the pig's yang. While the pig received...
Jesus. Okay then. Hello, Bree. You're interrupting Mr. Ardetha. How dare you do that? He's explaining the Wraith. I hope you're doing well, Bree. I appreciate the Chase Canaran music. But we need to be quiet and sound alert. We're listening to Mr. Ardetha talk about the Wraith. So we're trying to listen to him. I hope you're doing well, Bree.
Back then. In some ways,
Wraith was really bad back
then.
then.
To the pig's yang. While the pig received countless nerfs over the years, Wraith regularly found himself on the receiving end of buff after buff, spanning his long history in the game. To follow the Wraith's journey from the bottom of the tier list to where he's at now, we must first go all the way back to the Wraith's release. Back when the Wraith was released, just about everything in Dead by Daylight was different.
I didn't play back then.
The game had a lot more emphasis on stealth, people were still getting to grips with looping, and the killer tier list was way different. For starters, Trapper was the best killer in the game before Wraith was added, because the Wraith was the second ever killer in Dead by Daylight. As such, back then different things were valued more than they are nowadays. For instance, the ability to find survivors.
Yep.
While the Wraith's perks nowadays are laughed at, back then they definitely had some appeal to them, because
They
survivors
definitely
would
were okay back
actually
then.
hide back
Bloodhound,
then.
okay. Race perks. Predator is awful. I would not recommend Predator. What's his other one? Bloodhound is actually, in certain situations, it's okay. But the majority of the time, you're not going to have any use for it, so it's kind of just there. And Shadowborn is mainly only used on Blights nowadays, or Huntresses. That's about that's all I see with that. Maybe Nurse as well, but that's really what I see with the Shadowborn. So yeah, race perks are kind of just meh. They're there.
So, Bloodhound and Predator were more valuable than they are nowadays.
Yep.
Even progressing into more modern iterations of
Bloodhound's
Dead by
okay.
Daylight like 2018 to 2019, Predator and Bloodhound would make returns to the killer meta 3 or 4 times a year. Not due to killers actually wanting the perks, but due to recurring bugs with survivor footstep audio, scratch marks, grunts of pain, and blood. Every few patches, one of the following would happen. Either survivors would stop making injured sounds altogether, the sound of survivor footsteps would stop playing, or scratch marks would simply cease at random intervals, or pools of blood from injured survivors would never
really
spawn at all. Of course, these bugs would be fixed after a while, but once again return a few months later. Sometimes there were 2 or 3 of these bugs active at the same time, so sometimes killers ended up resorting to Bloodhound or Predator depending on which mechanic was bugged.
I never thought about using Bloodhound or Predator for that stuff, but now that you mention it, that would have helped a lot back in the day if I did decide to use it. Oh, those bugs were awful back then, Jesus. I've seen a lot of stuff from when Wraith first came out. He's been changed quite a bit over time throughout the 6 years. He's had a lot of changes. Yeah, let's keep watching.
In an attempt to alleviate the problem, killers would try to ignore the issues as there were always more valuable perks than Bloodhound or Predator, but sometimes they just had to rely on them when they couldn't rely on the buggy core mechanics. Speaking of the Wraith's perks, Shadowborn was much better and much worse at the same time back then. Back then, Shadowborn would increase the killer's field of view just like it does nowadays, but it would also make the game much brighter for killers, making it easier to spot survivors, and honestly, it just made the game feel so much better to play. But it also had the downsides of allowing the killer to be blinded faster and stay blinded for longer. Considering flashlights used to be able to insta-blind killers back then.
Oh my god. Poor Matthew Cote. Insta-blind.
The downsides were definitely overkill. Due to these hefty downsides, Shadowborn never saw the use it should have seen back then. And while nowadays it doesn't have those downsides anymore, it no longer makes the game brighter. So you might as well just use monitor and abuse if you want.
It's because, I think it's mainly because they don't use the moon offerings anymore. When you could make the map brighter or darker. So those are no longer in the game. I think that might have been the main reason why. One of the main reasons why, other than like maybe the flashlight thing. But yes, I can remember to look at the camera there. Camera's there, chat's there. I can look at that. Yeah, the yeah, I think just the moon offerings kind of were maybe another reason why I got rid of it, because the moon offerings made the game really bright. But then there was also an offering that made it really dark, and it made it really hard to spot survivors. I didn't play back then, but seeing the gameplay and trying to spot people seemed like almost impossible sometimes, especially against a Claudette, when she blended into the environment a lot more with her clothing. It was really hard to see her. So yeah, it was very painful back then.
Of view, since at least it gives you a smaller heartbeat too. So upon release, the Wraith's power was much different to how it was today. Some of these differences were no post-uncloak speed boost, significantly less movement speed while cloaked, slowed more while transitioning into the cloaked state, slowed more while transitioning out of the cloaked state, couldn't break pallets or kick gens, etc. while cloaked. His bell and whooshing sounds could be heard map-wide, he was stunned for longer when lightborn, blood didn't glow when he was cloaked, and he even set off crows when he was invisible. For the first year or so, the Wraith consistently received a constant flow of quality of life changes, which were really just tiny buffs, so small that you could barely justify calling them buffs, such as making it so he doesn't set off crows while invisible, starting the match pre-cloaked, lowering the volume of his footsteps while cloaked, and lowering the volume of his growling while cloaked.
That is true, his footsteps were loud at one point.
The Wraith's first proper set of changes were on the 14th of December 2017, with changes primarily aimed at reducing the amount of information he would give to survivors and making his cloaked mode slightly more useful. To reduce the information given,
I think I remember that actually. I think I kind of remember that part, but that was so long ago, so I don't. I remember like I can remember the details with it, but I can't remember the gameplay wise of it. The gameplay wise of it, I can't remember too much about it, so. Yeah, I can't say anything on that part.
To survivors, the Wraith's bell sound when cloaking and uncloaking was changed from being map wide to having a maximum range of 24 meters. Surprisingly, this was actually fairly big, as back then when playing Survivor, you could be on a gen or heal someone or breaking a totem or whatever you're doing, and you'd hear each time he cloaked and uncloaked.
See, he basically had like a base kit bone clapper bell, in a sense. It was kinda bone clapper, kinda. But not complete bone clapper, because obviously 20 meters away you hear the normal bell, but when he's away you just hear what you call it? You hear what you hear a bone clapper. So that's basically what it is, yeah. Hey Anarchist, what's up gamers? Not much. We're watching a video by Ardetha. That's what we're watching. Here's my mic is kind of spiking a bit. Turn it down a bit. There we go. Okay.
Effectively giving you a constant stream of updates on when he was in a chase or when he was scouting. To clarify, by map-wide bell sounds, I don't mean map-wide max volume non-location based like his current Bone Clapper add-on. I mean you could pinpoint his exact location just from the audio alone, distance and position included. Alongside this, the whooshing sound that plays after he has finished transforming into the invisible state was reduced from being map wide to having a range of 40 meters.
That's not what
Due to this, you could still tell when he was going invisible from a hefty distance away, but at least it was better than hearing both cloaking and uncloaking. It's effectively half of the information being given. For the other half, making his cloaked mode more useful, they made it so he was slowed slightly less while bing-bonging to cloak and uncloak, as well as making it so the bell sound plays halfway through uncloaking, instead of right at the start. Once again, it's an attempt to try and give survivors less information. I remember back then Wraith players were over the moon about the movement speed penalty while bing-bonging being reduced, even though it wasn't a huge difference. And finally, two big changes for the main course for this patch. The Wraith now had Bloodhound built into his base kit, meaning he could see blood flowing extremely bright whilst invisible, honing in further to the hunter/scout role that the Wraith was supposed to have back then.
I totally forgot about that
being
change.
able to kick gens and break pallets while invisible. Believe it or not, up until then, Wraith players would have to cloak to scout the map, uncloak to kick a gen, cloak again to catch up to the survivor that just ran away from the gen, and then uncloak again to actually hit them. Ridiculous by today's standards, but back then, that's all Wraith players knew. No longer was that the case though. He would now be able to interact just like when he was uncloaked, and he would simply fully uncloak and fully recloak automatically during the kicking animation. While the base kit Bloodhound didn't make much of a difference to higher tier players as tracking really wasn't that hard, the ability to interact with gens and pallets while cloaked was greatly appreciated. Technically it might not have even been that big of a difference, but it made the Wraith feel so much nicer to play. Just to recap, we're only at December of 2017, and the Wraith had already racked up...
Wait, December 2017. Shit, that's like around the time I started playing. Okay. So, that is the point I started playing. I think I tried DVD one time at that moment. That was back when I was wait. 2017. Yeah, that was around the time I started playing. Like, I was still mainly playing Friday the 13th back then. Okay, so I know what body's in now. I completely lost track of the time that he was at. So yeah, when I started, he did have that, the base kit Bloodhound. I do remember seeing that. I do remember that. But that was briefly. I briefly remember that. Because I wasn't often playing DVD still. Like, I played it on and off. But I wasn't, like, consistent back in the day. So yeah. That's way before I started playing. That's quite a long time, yeah. That was way back in DVD's days. That was the time when they were just getting licensed killers left and right. So that was Leatherface, Freddy, and Amanda. That was three licensed killers in a row. Yeah, let's continue.
Top 13 buffs, including the ones previously listed, with a lot of these buffs simply being the reduction of his growling volume over and over and over again. Despite this, the Wraith was still not clawing his way out of the low tier category. Players as a whole were getting better at the game, pallet loops were becoming more and more prominent, Decisive Strike was still an instant stun regardless of whether or not the survivor was hooked, and the Nurse and Hillbilly were added into the game, outshining the Wraith by absolute miles. Even with the buffs, Nurse and Billy had better map pressure and better killing potential than the Wraith, and Trapper had better anti-loop potential with his traps. Meanwhile, all the Wraith could do was go invisible and move ever so slightly faster, only to lose any distance gained in chase due to being slowed while uncloaking. So comparatively speaking, he barely even had an ability. Up until patch 2.1.0 on the 24th of July 2018, the Wraith continued to receive consistent, small buffs to his power, including making it so smoke appeared slightly later in his uncloak animation to avoid giving his position away early, and reducing his light burn stun duration from 4 seconds to 3 seconds. In case you don't know, light burn is a mechanic for the Nurse and Wraith where if you blind them with a flashlight while they're using their abilities, they get stunned. This even works on the Nurse nowadays while she's charging.
That works with the Nurse? I didn't know that works with the Nurse. I knew you could stop her blinks, I didn't know that stunned her though. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know you could, well, you have to blind her for it, but I didn't know you could do that. Interesting. Okay.
Her blink. At this point, the Wraith had received a whopping 16 buffs, most of which were negligible volume changes, and he still remained in the dirt. Things needed to change. So, 2 months later, on the 18th of September 2018, patch 2.2.0 hit, and behavior decided to stop being coy and actually commit to giving Wraith a real, tangible buff by nerfing the pig. They buffed 3 core aspects of the Wraith.
By nerfing the pig. I like how he cut the by nerfing the pig. I don't know if you caught on that, but he said by nerfing the pig. Nerf pig meme, right? Nerf pig. That's the whole meme around that. Yeah, that's interesting. That is pretty interesting. Yeah, you can blind the Nurse. And stun her when she's using her power. Didn't know that. Real, tangible buff by nerfing the pig. They buffed 3 by nerfing the pig.
Core aspects of the Wraith's ability. They reduced the movement speed penalty while uncloaking, completely removed the movement speed reduction while cloaking, and allowed him to attack instantly after uncloaking. And on top of this, they took his best add-ons and made them base kit. I'm talking about Windstorm. The Windstorm add-ons were the Wraith's most popular add-ons by an absolute landslide, and what they did was grant the Wraith a short burst of speed when coming out of invisibility, something I'm sure you're all familiar with, as it remains a core part of his base kit to this very day. The base kit Windstorm change was of course the talk of the town this patch, because it was so valuable to the Wraith, not only regaining the distance lost due to his uncloaked movement speed penalty, but also the burst of speed could be used to mind game certain loops, as it would force survivors to react very quickly. A side effect of the other change.
Can I say though, chat? And this is just me at this time period, right? So when Wraith got this change, and at this point, I was mainly playing Amanda at the time. I kind of left Wraith for a while afterwards, but I went back to him later on. And this point where he had this uncloak speed, when he decloaked, I was saying, like, at the time period, like nowadays I would change my mind, but back then before Wraith got the speed buffs, base movement speed, I would say that I don't think Wraith needed a change back then. Nowadays these changes are nice with skill-based matchmaking, but back then it was kind of like whatever, you know. But that's just me anyway. I know someone's gonna heavily disagree with me there, but personally, from a Wraith main in particular back then, I didn't think those changes were needed at the time. With skill-based matchmaking get added in, I think that was a well-deserved change. So yeah.
Was that he could now bait dead hard much better by starting the bell animation for only a fraction of a second, which starts an animation similar to him swinging, and it would no longer slow his movement speed to perform this bait. But they weren't done there. Alongside all of these core ability changes, they gave the Wraith a full add-on pass, buffing many and totally reworking others, including his old best add-ons, Windstorm. Since their old function was now base kit, they changed them to significantly increase his movement speed while invisible. However, the community's clear favourites after this add-on pass were Bone Clapper and Coxcombed Clapper. Bone Clapper made his bell map wide and disabled location-based bell audio, so survivors couldn't tell where he is, whereas Coxcombed Clapper would completely disable the bell audio altogether. The Wraith had finally climbed out of the low tier range, no longer a joke of a character, and now has a great set of add-ons that shifted.
Although people still put him down there. People did put him down there for a bit. Maybe not as the worst killer, but they still kept him down in the low tier. He's either in the F or E tier. He was around there. That's where a lot of people kept himself.
His strengths into various directions. He felt great to play and was able to keep up with most of the killer roster. For the next few years, the Wraith would continue to receive tiny, negligible buffs and audio volume changes, albeit less frequently than he did before. This trend would continue up until the 9th of February 2021, when patch 4.5.0 released, releasing the next set of proper buffs and marking the end of the constant flow of tiny buffs for the Wraith. In this set of proper buffs, the Wraith would find himself finally becoming properly invisible instead of shimmering from a range of 20 meters or further. Any survivors closer than 20 meters would still see him shimmering as usual. This change makes total sense because it was kind of awkward before having a killer where their ability was to go invisible, but they didn't really go invisible because survivors could still see a shimmering effect. It was awkward. So at least he would now have an aspect of genuine invisibility in his kit. Additionally, the post-uncloak Windstorm speed boost effect would be increased by 25%.
That was a massive buff, by the way, for those add-ons. Wraith was so fast. He was quick back then. When that change came through, he was fast. And I mean really fast. Like a lot of people, like the Wraith got a nice proper buff. And then people complained that he got overbuffed. It's like, he's been overbuffed so much already, so yeah. People who say Wraith is low tier don't know what they're talking about, to be honest. Nowadays, I would say yes. He's definitely not a low tier killer. I wouldn't say he's top tier. I'd say he's in between. He's like middle pack. From my experience, anyway, he's middle. He's like the bottom middle part. I wouldn't say he's completely low tier, but yeah. He's B tier easily. Don't know if I put him B tier anymore. I'm not. Well, no, I didn't put him B tier. I put him in C tier in my tier list, or D tier, because I have an F and E tier. So I put him in D tier and that. So I don't think he's a B tier anymore. He's kind of dropped down a bit. Good survivors really do hurt the Wraith quite a bit. So yeah.
From 1 second to 1.25 seconds. This granted him even more lethality and mind game potential in certain loops, alongside changing his animations when kicking gens and pallets while invisible, making it so he only partially uncloaks during the animation instead of fully uncloaking, like he did until then. At this point in time, the Wraith was in a weird position. Some people in the community were adamant that the Wraith was top tier now, while the majority agreed that he was definitely decent, but not that good. One thing was certain, Wraith was seeing incredible amounts of play, somewhat comparable to the amount of blights that you'd see nowadays, and people were starting to get annoyed.
Oh my
maybe
god,
that quarter of a second speed boost increase really did make him too good, or maybe playing against the same killer all day long every day is just annoying regardless of how strong they are. No matter
people with Wesker now.
So what the answer really is, a month later, the Wraith got a power shift, a buff and a nerf at the same time. The buff being faster base movement speed while invisible, and the nerf was that his movement speed reduction while uncloaking was intensified. This patch once again found the Wraith climbing up tier lists just a little bit due to the increased map pressure and mobility.
Okay. I thought I was talking about a totally different change from over there. Okay, that really... that really threw me off for a second there. Okay, hold on. Let me re-listen to that because I was completely thrown off right there for a second. Let's talk about the
No
current Wraith
matter
that we
what
have
the
now.
answer really is, a month later, the Wraith got a power shift, a buff and a nerf at the same time. The buff being faster base movement speed while invisible, and the nerf was that his movement speed reduction while uncloaking was intensified. This patch once again
So while
found
he
the
was
Wraith climbing up.
while he was uncloaking, they did reduce that movement speed. They gave him like another base windstorm add-on. So like as Ardetha said, he moves quicker while cloaked, but his uncloak speed, when he's uncloaking, he also moves slower. So, but in other words, like they just made him like super fast. It's like, dude, this was like way too much speed for him. It was fun, but it was way too much.
Up tier lists just a little bit due to the increased map pressure and mobility granted by the increased movement speed while invisible. Combined with the new reworked Windstorm add-ons, you could increase the Wraith's map pressure to insane levels, even reaching levels similar to the Hillbilly. Pair that with the reworked Ruin, which was still a good perk back then, and the Wraith found himself in the strongest position he had ever been, turning that map pressure into gen.
And then you throw and play with the food, and that makes him even faster. Like that guy, he was like Hillbilly and Blightspeed combined into one. You know, it's just like, oh man, he was quick.
Pressure, giving him more time to get out pallets, and then eventually turn that into chase pressure as the survivors began to run out of pallets. Half a year later, the Wraith would receive a nerf, reducing the post-uncloak speed boost from 1.25 seconds back down to the previous value of 1 second, which is the...
Why did they nerf that part? That so upsets me that they nerfed that. That did not need a nerf. The uncloak speed did not need a nerf. I think that was fine because he could deal with loops. And nowadays, I think it would be nice if he had that still, because he could deal with top tier teams possibly, maybe. Like maybe not the ultra top tier, but like he could deal with like semi top tier teams because he could catch up to them with loops. He can't do that now, unfortunately. If you broke my heart, yeah. That was a sad day. That's still sad that the Wraith is that. But like his move, like the base movement speed that he got while cloaked, that could have been changed, which it did. I think that did get changed. But the uncloak speed, that sucked.
The current iteration of Wraith as of the time of recording this video. Even now, with the death of Ruin, the Wraith still finds himself in a good position. His map pressure lends itself nicely to today's current killer meta of gen kicking, with perks like Call of Brine, Overcharge and Eruption greatly benefiting high mobility killers who can apply these perks to lots of gens in quick succession over and over again. All of this is further amplified with the Windstorm add-ons, which I think are still heavily slept on to this day, with most players still going straight to either of the clappers and faster uncloak speed due to the initial splash they made upon the add-on rework. I honestly think a lot of people haven't even tried the new Windstorm, purely because all the hype was focused on the clappers. Even if double Windstorm isn't the way to go, I think it's at least worth pairing one Windstorm add-on with your clappers. You'd be surprised at how much of a difference they make to your map.
They make a
so
big
sure, the
difference.
Wraith isn't up there with the Nurse and
Very
Blight,
big
but
difference.
there is no denying that he is leagues above where he used to be. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you so much for sticking to the end. If you have any other things you'd like me to discuss in a similar style to this video, be sure to let me know.
Good video,
You can catch
Ardetha.
me live
That was
on
good.
twitch.tv
Good history analysis of the Wraith. It was good. Good video. Good video. But yeah, they. I don't know if I would agree with the part where people don't use the Windstorm add-ons too often. I see him quite a bit, but that might just be from his games though. I don't know if he's talking about the whole community himself. But the Windstorm add-ons do get used quite a bit. Granted, yeah, the Bone Clapper and the Wailing Bell are definitely pretty good, but yeah, the speed add-ons, they do turn the tide of a game around pretty quickly. Excuse me. If you know what you're doing with them.